Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of Masks Off. And yesterday, in the last episode, we were talking about the results of wearing masks. We had talked about how sometimes we can have addictions, anxiety, depression, not having fulfilling relationships as a result of the masks that we wear. And in today's episode, we want to talk about what are the benefits of removing these masks. And as we have been doing with each of the episodes, we start with a quote. So I would like to share again a quote from Alicia Keys' book, More Myself. And she says, "I don't have to fit in. None of us does. Our uniqueness isn't a scar, but a beauty mark. What makes us different is also what makes us wildly, boldly, and marvelously who we were born to be."
I love that.
It's an amazing quote. So, what I have noticed for myself as I begin to take back and peel back the masks is this feeling of being more empowered and more free. And just with doing this podcast with you, Tia, has been huge. It's a huge peeling back and taking the mask off. And by being able to show up here with all of you and talk about my vulnerabilities, to talk about the real me and share myself is actually creating more energy. I feel so energized. Like I have this freedom of I'm not hiding behind a mask anymore. And I feel this new sense of empowerment. So it's exciting for me what the possibilities are when I start to take my masks off. And like I shared even in the last episode about starting this new business. And even though it's scary and putting myself out there, there's also at the same time, again, this feeling of being free and empowered. And literally, I think the last time I remember feeling that way was when I was a little child.
Wow.
Like just running around, playing, just being completely myself and being free.
Yeah. And not worrying what anyone else is thinking.
And not worrying. And that's a huge undertaking for me, is to not worry what people are thinking.
Right.
And knowing that many, many listeners, including people that know me, may very well be listening to these podcasts at some point. It still is scary. I'm not going to lie. It's still a scary feeling. But to be able to do it anyway and step out, like Alicia just said, what makes us different is also what makes us wildly, boldly, and marvelously who we were meant to be.
Right.
Gives me chills.
And I love what you talked about how, that it's so energizing, and it is scary because we're having conversations that we have had privately. And now it's like people are in the room with us having these conversations, but it's freeing because we don't have to hide anymore. We still need to be mindful and all of those things, but we can still be us.
Yeah.
Who we are without the layers, without the masks, or peeling back the layers, and stepping into our shining light for real. Because we can't hide in this situation. I mean, we have little blips and errors, technical stuff. We're not techies. And we made the decision to be like, we're just going to leave them, because that's part of removing that perfectionist mask. But it's the vulnerability piece, which for me personally has been so hard over the years, because it feels like you're just exposing all these raw parts, ugly parts, that we've decided are ugly. When you actually become vulnerable and share it with someone, they see the beauty in the vulnerability. At least that's been my experience on the other side. When someone shares and is vulnerable with me, all I see is strength and beauty.
That's so cool. That's so
So
cool.
it's incredible. So removing these masks, why would you do this? Because of it's that unknown. It's scary to do it, but once you're in it and once you embrace removing that mask, it's like, wow, like you said, there I am. There's that kid that used to run around and not worry. I'm still in there. But we're now have the wisdom of living all these years and all this life experience. So we can be that free flowing child with wonder and excitement with wisdom on top of it. And it's
That's
amazing.
amazing.
Now, having said that, it's not easy sometimes. I mean, sometimes I don't know what your experience has been, but I've removed a mask and, and it's a process, like we said before. It's not you rip it off and toss it to the side. It's a dance often. And you get pushback from people. They don't like it. I mean, some people are fine with it, and other people are like, wait a minute, you're changing the rule book. You used to always do this for me, or you used to, you're not the same person you once were. And it's like, actually, I am the same person. You're just not seeing the layers that I put on to protect myself and falsely protect you in the process. So I think an unexpected gift of removing a mask is, we just talked about it helps us, it empowers us. You're also giving the gift to the people in your life who may not like it, but you're giving them the gift and the trust that, hey, I believe in you. I don't have to be the people pleaser for you and take care of you anymore, because I know you can do it yourself. And again, that can be met with resistance by the other, but it is a gift of trust and ability to another. It may not feel that way, but when you start to peel back your mask, you see it's like, here's your gift. I believe in you just like I believed in myself. So I know you can do this too. Whether they choose to
Yeah.
or not is different, but why is anyone going to step outside their comfort zone if we keep making everything comfortable for them because we're wearing all our masks?
That's a really good point you bring up, and that one is a hard one for me because it's hard, especially for as a mom, right? For
Mm-hmm.
us moms, because one quick example is that my 20-year-old son does not know how to cook. Like literally, I don't think he could even boil water and make pasta. And I didn't either when I was his age, and I still don't, and I don't like it, and I'm not good at it. And I just figure it out. But literally, he will say that like he would rather just not eat than to have to cook. So what do? I go into panic mode. Oh my goodness, he's going to starve. He's going to starve. So even though I try to set the boundary and give him that gift of, learning how to cook and be independent for
Mm-hmm.
himself, I make him food. And I'll just break down. He'll be like, "Mom, what's for dinner? What's for lunch?" And I'll do it. So it is a process. You're absolutely right.
Oh yeah.
But even still, if I go even deeper underneath that, what's
Mm,
underneath that for me
right.
is
So what is?
I want to be accepted. I
Yep.
want to be loved. I don't want to set a boundary and have, the
Mm-hmm.
potential that he might be angry or upset with me and displeased, right?
Right. Right.
So it's really so much of this work is about going inward and
Mm-hmm.
just really looking at what are our patterns. And that's another positive outcome of taking off the masks is being able to go inward, looking at our old belief systems, looking at our patterns, and really trying to change them and becoming more of an adult.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And changing those patterns are not easy. There's a reason
No,
they're a pattern. I mean, it wouldn't be a pattern if that wasn't our go-to default, not even thinking. We just do it
yeah,
because that's all we've ever done. And so noticing the pattern is the first step, so what's going on, right?
yes,
But we have to be gentle with ourselves and be like, okay, I'm going to choose something different. I have the strength today to choose something different. You might not have the strength tomorrow or later in the day, but if you can notice it and make a choice to try it different, you're starting to rewire that brain, and it takes time. I always think of it as, when you walk through the woods or you see like deer paths through the woods, it's a clear path, right? That's our pattern. And to break the pattern means you got to go through all the crap on the forest floor and the brackle, and the brackle cuts you and it hurts and it doesn't feel good and it's hard and it's easy to turn around and go back on that path. But we have to create the new path. And that means walking through the thick brush, peeling back the layers, breaking the pattern.
That's
removing
beautiful.
the mask.
Removing the mask. That's really beautiful. And I'll just add one other positive outcome of pulling off the masks. You had talked earlier about vulnerability, and Brene Brown always says that vulnerability is the birthplace of authenticity, and it takes courage to show up and be, to be vulnerable. No one wants to be vulnerable because vulnerability is seen as weakness. But here's the thing, when we really do peel back that mask of perfectionism and we can be vulnerable with one another and just say, look, I'm in pain. I'm a mess right now. I'm a hot mess.
Yes.
And, can you help me? Can you listen? That creates connection, right? Because then you're connecting heart to heart. When you can really show up as your most vulnerable self and say, I'm a hot mess, I'm in pain, can you be here with me? That does create and allow for connection, deep connections,
real connections
with others, like none other. It's fine to want to talk about shoes and,
the Netflix
the
show.
weather, Netflix shows, like that's okay. That has a place and time, when you're out with the girls and if you're having a glass of wine or whatever, that's fine. But those don't create for real deep connections that we are longing for, that our spirit longs for.
That's what we're wired for.
That's what we are wired for.
And since removing my mask more and more, I'm finding a lot of that small talk conversation you were just talking about is more exhausting for me now.
Yeah.
It used to be the more challenging, vulnerable talks were harder because they were unknown. Where now when I have to talk about the weather, and again, there's a place and time, but if that's all I talk about with the person, it just is exhausting because I just realized why it's exhausting to me more. It's because I am putting the mask back on.
Yeah.
And so now it's more exhausting sometimes to wear these masks, where before it was easier to. But now it's like, that's not in alignment with who I am anymore. I mean, I'm happy to see, like today, I'm super excited. It's a sunny, beautiful day. My kids and I, we're going to go for a walk. We're going to go to a state park and go for a walk this afternoon. And so I'm talking about the weather, but I'm talking about the weather in a way like, and we could go for a walk in the rain, don't get me wrong. But it's part of the bigger conversation versus the standard, how are you? I'm fine.
Yes.
Without thought. It's mindful conversation.
Yes. And that's what I love. It is empowering. And that's what I love so much about our conversations. And that's why our conversations birth this podcast. Because when I would get off the phone after having a really good conversation with you, I felt so energized. I'm like, because I felt a connection with you. So it was like, okay, that's good. And you're right. Sometimes the other conversations can really, especially if the conversations are negative with other people, it can really weigh you down. Like I really limit the amount of conversations I'm having about coronavirus. I literally feel my energy level dip when people are talking about the coronavirus. And I get that they're talking from a place of fear and anxiety. So I'm mindful.
Right.
But if I have too many of them and for too long, it definitely has an effect on my vibrational level. And I have to limit that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I've gotten to a point now that, and it depends on the person too, because it's like, okay, is this an understanding, and it's all relative. But there's times where I'm like, I'm not I can't talk about it. I'm just blunt, and it may seem harsh, like I don't want to listen to you, but it's not about that. It's about taking care of myself. And it's like, I already know that information. I don't need to dissect it into a million pieces. And because all I'm doing then is I'm diving in and spiraling down, like you said, lowering that
Yes.
vibration. And I don't want to go there. I may dip there, but then I want to come right back out. I don't want to stay there for a half-hour conversation.
And so you just mentioned another benefit outcome, and we can end with this one, is that you were saying that by you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Self-care, right? That's a
Yeah.
huge one. So as you take off
Mm-hmm.
the people pleaser, caretaker, rescuer mask, and you start to set boundaries like you do in those
Yes.
conversations, you begin to take care of yourself and you begin to have more balance in your life. More
Yes.
balance.
I
So
love
we
that
can get into
balance.
that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we can get into that in more depth in future episodes too, and help listeners find a way to create more of that balance and get more of
Mm-hmm.
these positive benefits of removing the mask, and keeping in mind that it is a process.
Right. Exactly. And I think the balance piece is so important, like you said, because boundaries, we hear that all the time, but so many of us have a hard time actually not just holding a boundary, but even identifying what that boundary is. And is it necessary?
Absolutely.
Or is this a boundary to protect the mask that I'm wearing? And so, I mean, we could do tons of episodes about boundaries on its own,
Yes.
because I mean, I can speak personally, that has been a long, challenging process for
Me
me.
as well.
Really hard.
Me as well. My boundaries are very wishy-washy.
It's
And it's like,
hard.
it is hard. And people can pick up on the energy of a wishy-washy boundary.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yet, when I'm firm within myself and I know,
Mm-hmm.
like it's a knowing, like this is
Yep.
my boundary, this is my hard boundary, I don't even have to say it.
Mm-mm.
I don't even have to say the boundary. I just am the boundary.
Oh, yes.
I just am the boundary. And that
Yes.
energy is picked up on by the other.
Yep.
And that's it. It's like, okay,
Yep. And that's that whole authenticity piece, right? And
yes,
alignment. It's You're so grounded in you and what's right. And you know it's right. Deep inside you, you know it's
that
right.
knowing.
And people can push back, but it's like, you can push back all you want. I know right now this is right.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I love that.
I
That's
know.
so
So,
good.
more to be said about all of that. We just
Yes.
outlined many topics for many episodes just
Mm-hmm.
in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking forward to having more of these conversations with all of our listeners.
Definitely. And we were talking before starting recording on this, that if there's a topic you are really interested in and would like some support on, since we're all new to this, we figured you can put it in a review, because we don't know how you comment on a podcast other than leaving a review. And we will definitely look at those. And if there's an area you want us to dive into a little more, we want to explore that with you. So please let us know. And a review would be great as well if you're getting some information here that's helpful for you. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everyone.
Enjoy, and see you at the next podcast. Take care.
Take care, everyone.